This is a Rotala rotundifolia HRA, and this is a rotundifolia HRA as well. These are all Rotala HRAs, and this video is about the magical transformation of aquatic plants. In this video, I want to show you and explain to you how versatile these plants can be. And one of the best examples is the Rotala rotundifolia HRA. This piece is freshly taken out of an in vitro cup, actually, this one. This is an immersed potted form of the plant. You can see the leaves are round, they lack color, and these are from all the showroom aquariums at Green Aqua. These are all developed plants. You can see that the leaves have changed to this longer version instead of the round ones, but the colors are different. And today I'm going to explain to you why the colors are different and how you can affect the different looks of the same plant. The purpose of this video is not to get into details on this aspect, so I'm not gonna give you teaching points on what to do to achieve this or that look. The purpose of this video is to see the beauty of these plants independent of the environment they are in. It's just important to know and see how different they can look, and also I wanted to show you how they look actually developed. So all the plants you see in this video have been nurtured in our gallery for months. Usually when you look at our build videos, the end result you see at the end of the video, those are taken 2, 3 or 4 weeks after the build. At that point the plants are somewhat developed, but they're not in the fully developed stage. So this time I want you to see all our plants in all their beauty in the fullest form possible. Aquatic plants can have very different looks. The first reason for this is they have an immersed and a submersed form, most aquatic plants. So these plants are nurtured in a dry, very humid, but out of water dry environment. And just like we've seen it with the Rotala, the leaves and the colors can be very different from what we can achieve underwater. For example, Rotalas have round leaves when they are dry, and they have these long thin leaves when they get used to being underwater. Above water is called immersed and underwater is called submersed form. Another reason can be for the differences that plant nurseries tend to use the same names for slightly different plants, and also they can use different names for the same plants. Reason behind is that the plants are collected in nature all the time and they are examined all the time, and then sometimes people figure out that okay, this plant belongs to another family of plants. A good example for this is a lot of plants that used to be called Echinodorus types, like the Tenellus, for example, or the Quadricostatus. Now they figured out that they're not Echinodorus species, but Helantium species. So now they're called Helantium tenellum and Helantium quadricostatus. So you might find the same plant under different names, and you might find different plants under the same name. For most of us, this is not really important. The differences are so slight that it's more likely for plant collectors that these slight differences are really important. There is lots of different factors that we can actually control which result in different looks for the same plant. Most of you probably know that, for example, the red color of the plant is basically a protection against powerful lights. Obviously, the more powerful the light is, the more red tones going to come out on the plant leaves. So with the amount of light they get and the intensity of the light they get, you can control how red they're going to turn. how deep that red goes on the stem. If you have less powerful light, the very top of the plant can still turn red. It can still be a very deep red color, but the deeper you go in the tank, it's going to lose that red color. And the higher the intensity, the more depth of red color you can achieve, for example, on a Rotella plant. Obviously, another factor in the looks can be CO2 injection, if you have it or not. For some plants, it's a necessity, but we always say that even the plants that don't really need CO2 injection, they can look much more dense and much more healthy. They can grow bigger leaves, or in some cases smaller leaves from CO2 injection, and their color, even in the green range, can be slightly different based on if they get CO2 or not. And the third factor that we can control is obviously fertilization. And I think this is the most important aspect. So with more dense fertilizers like estimative index, you're gonna get denser growth, you're gonna get beefier leaves. Obviously this also translates into color on some level. So the beefier the leaf, the green color that you actually see is gonna get deeper and a bit richer, let's put it that way. On the other side, high red tones or deep red tones really correlate with the nitrate levels in your aquarium. So it's much easier to achieve really nice deep red colors on your plants with a lower nitrate level. So that goes towards the lean fertilization method. There are multiple important factors that you should take into consideration when you're choosing your plants for your next project. When you want to choose your plants, it's important to take all these aspects into consideration. Obviously, you want plants by their looks, probably. You want red colors, then you're gonna go for a plant that can be really nice red. But you need to think about what light you have. You need to think about what fertilizer you have if you don't want to switch for an actual build. A lot of people do it, that they have they have a tank that is running with estimative index fertilization, but then when they rescape that tank and have new plants, they might switch to lean fertilizers. But let's be honest, most people are gonna use what they already have. You are not gonna buy a new type of fertilizer just for your tank. You might, and there's a purpose for it. But when you are choosing plants, if you don't want new fertilizers, then take that into consideration as well. Try to go for plants that are going to look nice with that kind of fertilizer that you already have. You also need to consider the placement of plants. Usually there's about 4 or 5 categories for the plants. Obviously we have foreground plants, all our carpeting plants, and very, very small bushy plants. We have mid-ground plants, which are very important in dividing the front and the back of the aquarium. You don't want to transition from a short Monte Carlo into a high Rotella in the background, because the bottom of a stem plant is never nice. So you want a mid-ground plant in between to hide that not too nice part of your stem plants. And then you have your background plants. These are all what we plant. We don't divide them into more. Then you have your epiphytes, your anubiases, microsorums, bucephalandras, which you can also plant and also use as epiphytes. These go onto your hardscape, onto your wood, onto your rocks. And then there's moss, which is very versatile in placement. With a bit of a cheat, you can use it as a carpet. You just glue it in small pieces of rocks and throw around at the bottom of the aquarium. In general, they are used more like epiphyte plants, so they are usually put on the bigger pieces of hardscape to achieve a natural look. And that's it for the placement of the plants. The most important aspect when choosing plants is what can grow nicely in your environment. If you don't have CO2 injection in your aquarium, no problem. You can still achieve a very, very nice look in your tank. But don't try to use Hemianthus cuba, which is a carpeting plant really depending on high levels of CO2. It's never going to work. Do your research and choose plants that really are suitable for all the technical equipment you already have, or take into consideration that you might need to evolve your technical background. You might need a new light, a new CO2 system, or a new type of fertilizer. Also, a very important aspect of choosing your plants is how much time you're willing to spend on your aquarium. Obviously, you're going to need to do your weekly water changes and so on. There's no real way around that, but you can control how much you want to spend on trimming, for example. Now, this again depends somewhat on your fertilization routine. So with less fertilizers or more lean fertilizers, you can achieve a slower growth. This goes mostly for your stem plants, while with estimative index your growth is going to be much quicker, so you need to trim more regularly. But if you think ahead, you can you can build a tank that doesn't need any trimming. Very good example is one of my favorite Iwagumi tanks that I've built in the showroom, 60p with the white rhino stones, with Eleucharis minima or Eleucharis acicularis mini, or whatever you call it at this moment. That was the single carpeting plant all around the stones. That plant doesn't need any trimming. That tank ran here for about a year, I think, and we've never trimmed it. You don't need to. So you can go into these depths when choosing plants as well. If you know that you travel a lot, you don't really have time for trimming it every week, then don't use stem plants, especially quick stem plants. But even if you want stem plants, just do your research again and check the growth speed of that plant. There are stem plants that are quite slower than others. For example, Limnophila sessiliflora is a very, very quick growing plant. Also, myriophyllum types are very, very quick. So you're going to need to trim them maybe every week. On the other hand, like Pogostemon erectus, or now it's called Pogostemon deccanensis, that's a very, very slow stem plant. So you might only need to trim it every 4 weeks in the same environment as the 1 week rotation of our myriophyllum, for example. The most important takeaway from this video, which I hope you get, is do your research as always. Decide how much you want to invest in the new setup you're working on. Investment can be taken as money or time, and prepare on these two factors. So if you've done your research and you know about the needs of a plant, don't go like, it's gonna work for me. It's not gonna work. We've tried it. A lot of people have tried it. If the description of a plant says that it needs CO2, it's not gonna work properly without CO2. It might stay alive, it might grow a bit, but it's not gonna look as it should look. It's not gonna look as you desire it to look. I hope this video was useful for you. Again, I didn't want to give you exact points what to do on your tank. We have separate videos for that. We have fertilization tutorial, we have CO2 tutorial, and so on. Lots of videos about lights. This is just to understand and to take in and respect the beauty of our plants. Thank you for joining me today. Please, in the comments below, let me know what your favorite plant is. Maybe tell me why. And see you next time. Goodbye.